First up is former ITN Royal Editor Tim Ewart. Welcome back to the show. Now, I've just spoken in my first editorial about how Harry and Meghan keep using the media to try and improve their image, but it seems that with every attempt to do so, they do more damage than good. The South Park parody of the Sussexes has really hit a note, I think, with the public because it was such a brutal take on reality. It's something that it seems all sorts of cohorts genuinely found funny and turned into quite the talking point. Even wrestler and Fox News commentator Tyrus weighed in on the issue on Friday with my colleague Piers Morgan.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I did say on the Greg Gutfeld show that he did not write this book. She wrote this book. He just sat in the room with that uncomfortable look on his face that he always has, like he's sitting on a plate of glass. Americans and people around the world, they love accountability. When you write a book to smear other people, the immediate reaction is you want to look to see. That's why everyone was buying. And then you realize what kind of a person would do that to their family.
Now, Tim, South Park is a pretty rudimentary cartoon, but it has a way of measuring sentiment and sending a message. Does the drop in the Sussexes' popularity in the US on the back of the South Park episode surprise you?
No, it doesn't, Caroline. I think one of the things that has happened apart from South Park is that gradually the hostility that the British media, the tabloids in particular, have shown to Harry and Meghan has kind of permeated into the US media. It's kind of crossed the Atlantic, and we've seen far more critical stuff written about them recently than we did in the past. And I think, you know, they face the same sort of criticism that they face here. Over there, you heard Tyrus just then talking about how people don't like the idea that Harry has turned on his family. The other thing is this kind of mixture of what people perceive to be whining and privilege and wealth. And, you know, that's not a terribly good look. And I think more and more Americans are becoming aware through their media of that sort of feeling towards Meghan and Harry.
And I think that's pretty fair. I mean, you know, there is a big body of water that separates the UK and the US, but it's not unusual for there to be the similar cultural view that one shouldn't speak about their family like that in public. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are offended by that. I mean, you know, the late Queen was very, very popular here. And although she doesn't come in for criticism personally herself in either the book or the Netflix documentary or much earlier the interview with Oprah. Nevertheless, all of this was conducted during the sort of last period of her life. And I think people feel the timing was really bad. I mean, we had the Oprah interview way back going out while Prince Philip was, you know, in the last days of his life. So I think people feel that it's kind of, to use a very rather stuck-up British word, it's unseemly. I think people feel that it's just inappropriate and it lacks a certain dignity that they expect from the royal family. And that's reflected badly on Harry and on Meghan.
And look, the Sussexes are not the first people that South Park have parodied. They do this to everyone in equal measure. Do you think any suggestion of suing South Park or trying to get the episode blocked, do you think that actually does further damage?
Well, there's been talk about that. You know, a lot of these stories, you're never quite sure how they're sourced. I mean, it's, you know, people close to Meghan said that their lawyers were looking at South Park, had an interest in it. We then heard from them that they weren't going to bother because they just thought the whole thing was boring. I mean, it was pretty critical of them, wasn't it? I mean, the description of Meghan as sorority girl, actress, victim, and the same with Harry. And there was even, if you looked at a small part of the screen, which of course the British tabloids have blown up, you can see one of the other descriptions of her is First Lady Botherer, which reflects what she likes to project as her relationship with Michelle Obama. So it was pretty raw stuff. You know, the world we want privacy tour and all this kind of thing, really brutally lampooning them. And I think actually it reflects genuinely what a lot of people thought about them.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment, to be honest. I laughed. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. But look, let's move on to the coronation. And we know the planning for this is very well advanced. But again, it's been reported this week that Meghan feels excluded from the proceedings. Now, this is the King's event. How does it end up being about Meghan? Or is this really just the media stoking for clicks?
Well, I guess some people would say that everything with the royal family now ends up about being with Meghan. It all turns back to her. I mean, my understanding is that both Meghan and Harry either have been or are going to be invited to the wedding. I mean, let's not forget, although they live far away in California, Harry is a senior member of the royal family still. He's not a working royal. He's fifth in line of succession to the throne. His son Archie, whose birthday happens to be on Coronation Day, is sixth in line of succession to the throne. So to exclude them would be seen from the king was being incredibly petty, and he's not going to do it. He's going to invite them. But Harry's narrative is that kind of, well, the ball is in their court. We want an apology first. They're not going to get that. There's no way. They're not going to get an apology. They might get the king will reach out and offer the family hand of friendship and love, but nobody's going to actually apologize to them. So where that leaves them, my best guess is that Harry will come. I think he has to come. And I suspect that Meghan may use Archie's birthday as a reason not to come, because I think they're both aware that if they do, there may be some protests. There will be Republican movement protests on the day anyway, and that they may attract some pretty adverse reaction, booing and so forth, which would be really kind of bad for the occasion.
Yeah, no, very fair. That is actually very fair. And look, I will come back to that apology in a sec, but that requested apology in a sec. But before we do, there's just one more thing about the coronation I want to touch on, and that's this week. It's been reported that foreign monarchs are going to be invited to the coronation. Apparently, this is a break with tradition. So what has been the protocol up until now, and how and why is it changing?
Well, it's changing because King Charles wants to project a more transparent, modern image, and his coronation will be part of that. Historically, the coronation of the British monarch was a private moment, although conducted clearly in public, between the monarch, God, and the monarch's subjects. In other words, us, and for the time being, you guys, until you change your minds about whether you want it or not. But it was a private moment, so other royals were seen as not appropriate to be there for that. But this time, the talk is of what's called quiet diplomacy. So we're going to have a couple of rulers from Middle Eastern states, Oman for one. We are going to see, I suspect, some European royals, the Swedish Princess Sophia and so forth. So it's part of the British monarchy kind of changing with the times. This coronation is going to be less pompous, if you like, less ceremonial than the Queen's coronation in 1953. It'll still be a splendid occasion, but it's going to be far more diverse. The whole atmosphere is going to be different, and foreign royals coming in is just a part of that.
Look, there has been whispers for months about some sort of mediation of sorts between Harry, William and the King. Now, I'm a lawyer by profession, and mediations and apologies generally involve some sort of compromise. I'm not sure Harry has got that memo, though, and I'll note the ultimatum that you referred to earlier. Do we know what's going on behind the scenes at the moment on this?
No, we really don't. All we know is speculation, what we're told by palace sources. Is that accurate? Is that a spin? I mean, there has been talk about the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, acting as some sort of mediator. That story seems now to have gone away. I mean, Harry's position has always been that the ball is in their court. He said that right from the get-go. The first move towards any sort of reconciliation has to come from them. Well, I suspect on the side of the royal family, they feel that a guy who's taken part in a 6-part documentary and written a best-selling autobiography, in parts trashing members of the royal family, is the one who ought to apologise. So I see a bit of an impasse there. Certainly, Prince William, Harry's brother, is in no mood to apologise. He's seriously upset and angry about what has been said. The King, Charles, has always said that he wants to reach out to the person he's called his darling boy. That's Harry. Now, that would be a coming together as a family. I would be amazed if that included a formal apology. So it is, to be fair, very, very difficult to see right now how this is all going to end.
And what do you think will ultimately happen there? And do you think that this is more for something that goes into the basket of after the coronation?
Yeah, I mean, Charles, this Charles's big day. He's waited for 74 years for this. You know, he doesn't want his big day to be spoilt. And to be fair, the British public don't want it to be spoilt either, because however cynical we are and largely apathetic in considerable numbers about the royal family, you know, we're going to get a day off for this do. We're going to have a bank holiday on Monday. There's going to be street parties. And the Brits love that. And they don't all have to be flag-waving royals, you know, to share in the party spirit. And we've been cynical about these things in the past. Would it be the same for William and Kate's wedding as it was for Charles and Diana, and so on and so on and so on? And it always is. People get the flags out, they wave them, they sit out on their trestle tables in the street, and they have a good day. So nobody wants that to be spoiled by some sort of brooding prince on the sidelines. At least of all, if he's going to become the centre of attention. But as we've said, he kind of has to be there. He has to be invited, and he will be invited. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Harry personally to say no to his father's coronation. What Meghan does is a different matter, and I would be personally a little surprised if she comes.
Tim, thank you for joining us on the show. We really appreciate you making the time on your Sunday morning. No doubt we'll be chatting to you again soon.
Hope so.